So we understand that Republicans and Democrats differ on, climate change and what should be done about it, and whether or not they even trust the science itself. But apparently, if you dig a little bit below the surface, there are much more interesting numbers there. And it's not about the difference between Republicans and Democrats, but between Republicans and insane right-wing Tea Partiers. And so we've got some information coming from a study by the University of New Hampshire. Let's bring up this first chart. You'll see there, the top line of each of those groups is the most important ones. That's the percent that are saying that they trust environmental science. Scientists talking about climate change in this case. You see the Democrats are incredibly likely to say they trust those scientists, 83%. Independents depressingly down there near the Republican number with 63 to the Republican 60. And there's a gap there between Democrats and Republicans, but look at the gap between Republicans and self-professed Tea Partiers. Tea Partiers are less than half as likely to say that they trust scientists when it comes to environmental issues. That is not just sort of shocking, but it's also depressing, and it's pretty sad that we can have, these are not 10-year-olds who haven't taken the classes yet. These are 50, 60, 70-year-olds who have grown up and just don't trust what trained professionals are saying.
I just don't understand people that would not trust an expert in a given field. Not everybody's correct, obviously, but as the general theme of experts, if you were to throw out your back, you would go to a chiropractor probably, and you wouldn't go to a podiatrist who's an expert in a different part of the body. I just don't understand how you could take a whole group and this is just...
Well, we live in a country that believes in the literal existence of angels and believes in psychics and believes the black hole might have swallowed the Flight 370. Like, they have a lot of crazy beliefs. And usually those are relatively... That's possible. Thank you, Don Lemon.
Probable.
Those are usually pretty harmless. But here we're talking about something where even if we marshal all of our economic power and influence worldwide to do something about it as a country, we might not be able to stop it at this point. But we have to at least try, and yokels are stopping us from even doing that.
Well, what do you think? You're some kind of expert? Come on.
Can I make not in climate science particularly?
Can I make 2 points? The first point is, can you put that chart back up, because they split the Republicans. They go, well, look how the regular Republicans aren't quite as crazy because 60% of them trust science. But you can't split the Republicans like that. You have to put the Tea Partiers and the Republicans together. And I'm pretty sure if you did that, you would have less than 50% of your average Republican trusting science. Right. So that's a big problem. And I think that stems a lot from misinformation. It also stems from, I've said this before, this isn't scientific, this is my guess, that they learn bad ways of thinking because they're overly religious. So they've learned how to just push facts out of the way, and they've learned to just somebody explained it, that the difference between a progressive and a conservative's views of solutions to problems is thus. Conservatives think their solution works because it's the right solution. Progressives think their solution is the right solution because it works. So those are two different things, right?
It's a bit long to fit on a bumper sticker, but I like it.
Yeah, but you can put it on a T-shirt and then stuff it up your ass, you fuckface. Anyway.
I do like it, though.
Good night, everybody!
So
it's hard to get a rise out of Jimmy, but I did it.
So if you look at the Tea Party statistics, if you put together the people who are unsure and don't know if scientists are lying to them about climate change and the ones who just don't trust them, that's almost 80%. That's 8 out of 10 Tea Partiers completely rejecting science. And these people want a seat at the table making policy about climate science.
Yeah. Now, thankfully, at least in the most recent round of primaries that we had, I think there were 3 Senate primaries on the Republican side, the Tea Partiers lost, thankfully. Yeah. So they're losing a little bit of their political influence, at least in terms of electing who they want, but they still have political influence in forcing establishment mainstream conservative Republicans to push farther towards the right. And so Mitch McConnell is not the same.
They just bounce back, though, to the center.
Yes. It could
closer
be.
to the center after, because once you got them out of the way.
It could be, but they could fear the next time around. There could be another challenge. I don't know. I mean, I guess we can see if Mitch McConnell is the same turtle that he was 2 years ago. Yeah. But I think he might have been influenced. But they also looked at all Republicans, including Tea Partiers and Democrats, and they showed how big of a gap there was in their support for dealing with certain things. The biggest gap was something obvious, whether or not they approve of Obama. 72% gap between Democrats and Republicans. Climate change is the second biggest. After approving of the Democratic president, there's no issue that there's more disagreement on between Democrats and Republicans. And again, as we showed in that last chart, the Republican score is being weighted down by idiotic Tea Partiers. But there is some things they agree on. Like there's only an 18% gap on GMO labels, which I think is interesting, and evolution 23% gap, which means there's twice as big a gap on climate change as on evolution, which is seemingly one of the most divisive issues in America today.
So I'm a little confused. So you're saying that the Tea Partiers, twice as many of them, discount the science on climate change as do on evolution.
Well, the gap in like saying we should do something about it, or in the case of evolution, believing that it's happening. So basically, like how different the two groups are is twice as big for climate change as for evolution.
Oh, okay, that's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. And anyway, and the final point before we move on is, remember when the Tea Party was getting all worked up, all geared up, and they were being described, and we were getting attacked for saying they were extremists, so they were crazy in some way. And they said, no, we're not crazy. We just care about fiscal issues, and we want fiscal discipline in the country. We don't want these massive bailouts. What the fuck does that have to do with climate change? It's a bunch of crazy people pretending to care about pocketbook issues, but they are just a crazier version of the crazy Republicans we've been dealing with over the past 30 years.
I would say willfully ignorant. That's what I would say. You know,
Also willfully ignorant.
Yeah, I would say that. But you know, I mean, the Republican Party, Fox News, they have built their entire business model is built on misinformation. You know, I mean, they're not about getting people educated to the facts so we can make rational decisions. It's about pushing bullshit that their donors want them to push, like the Koch brothers. So that's the result. That's the result of it.